Well, we had the Pratt & Whitney aircraft down there with us, and they took a lot of our citizens from East Hartford, and they worked there. But I stayed home and helped my mother take care of the kids. So I didn't. Then when my brother went in the service, that was another thing. I didn't like that very well, but I missed him too much.
Why'd you pick the Army?
I picked the Army because I didn't want to go in the Navy because I couldn't swim that well.
Why? Why couldn't you swim?
I never did like to swim. And then the Marine Corps was kind of rough. So I just liked the easiest one.
Oh, so the Army was the easiest one.
Yes, for me it was.
Tell everybody why the Army was the easiest one.
The Army was...
In your opinion.
In my opinion?
In your opinion.
Well, I couldn't say for the fellows because it was all girls when I went. But when I went, there was only the WWII detachment at Des Moines, Iowa. And then when I went in the service, I went to Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, and I had my basic training there of 1 month. From there, I was lucky enough to go to, I gotta think of it.
Boot camp?
Stephen F. Austin College in Texas, and I had an administration course, which consisted of 56 subjects. That's where I learned how to type and learned how to do bookkeeping, and well, that's all I had was do office work. So then when I graduated from there, I went back to Camp Landing, Florida, and I became a PFC. And from there, I made corporal, then I made sergeant, and then I made staff sergeant. So I really had a lot of...
you shot your way up the ranks.
I sure did.
Okay. Couple things. What was boot camp like, and any stories about your instructors, especially the hands in the pocket story? You told me the other
You want me to do that?
Yeah, you can tell to the American people.
Well, anyway, I only had a month of basic training. And that was how I had to learn how to drill the soldiers. Well, not soldiers, the ladies. And I had to learn a lot of office work there, too. But that was just easy. I got my shots there. And then we had to do drilling, and we had to parade. That was one of the best things, was parading. I loved to parade.
Why?
I loved it.
What was so special about it?
Well, didn't you think that, hey, it was nice seeing women in the Army Corps and going around with these fellows and having a good time? And then where did I go from there? Then when I went to ad school, which we called administration school, that was a rough one.
And why was it rough?
Well, you take 56 subjects in 6 weeks and see what you do with them.
What kind of subjects did they make you take?
I took typing, bookkeeping, how to greet different officers and parade there. And
Was it like an officer training kind of thing?
no, it was just for women in the Corps. That's all.
Yeah.
And then when they sent me home, and well, it wasn't home; it was Camp Landing. I got along very well at Camp Landing because when I got there, there was only 125 girls there. But we had it was a good detachment. But when I had to go to my interview up at camp headquarters to see what kind of job I was going to be doing. Well, I went up there, and I met Captain Bill Haynes, and he was from Ansonia, Connecticut. And when he found out that I was a girl from Connecticut, I had it made.
Alright, that's not bad. Okay, now just state for everybody what war you were in. Well, just for the record, say which war you were in.
Just World War II.
Okay, just say that for the record. Okay. And where'd you go? Where'd you go in the war?
I just told you up there.
No, we got into the wars. That was your boot camp. That was after you had
That
boot
was
camp.
my boot camp.
And
that was
then where were you stationed during the war? This is where you stationed during
Camp Landing, Florida.
Okay. What was it like when you arrived?
When we got there, it was a little bit like a swamp place because there was Kingsley Lake there, and headquarters was listed on Kingsley Lake. But our detachment was down about, I'd say a half mile from camp headquarters. But I loved it because I was at headquarters. I was at camp headquarters. I was meeting all different officers and everything else.
Why did you like the headquarters? Just made you feel more comfortable? Or
Well, that's what I was turned out. I was trained for.
Yeah. So that was your job assignment?
My first job assignment when I got to camp headquarters was work in the discharge section. Then after I got through with the discharge section, I went to payroll section. And this is a story I got to tell for Brady.
It's okay.
When I was doing the payrolls, this sergeant from the supply detachment, he kept asking me to have a date. And I kept saying no because I didn't want to have dates with fellas then. And he said, gosh, he says, there's good movies going. I said, yeah, but I don't want to go. So he hung up, and the next thing I know, he's calling me again. And he says, Gladys, he says, there's a good movie tonight. And I said, didn't I tell you no? And he says, well, he says, the movies are hard to get. And he said, how about taking some gum? I said, a gum? He says, yeah. I says, gum is hard to get now. And I said, well, so was I. And I hung up the phone. And I didn't hear any more.
Yeah. What are some of your most memorable experiences from anywhere throughout the war? Started in, towards the end?
My first big experience was going to Fort Devens in a troop train and going from Fort Devens to Georgia, all over the United States, I used to say. But we had to go on the troop train, and it took us 6 days just to go about 10 miles. And we were on a troop train, and when you're on a troop train, you go where the troops go. So I was...
Did you go out west or...
I went as far as the Mississippi River and came back down the other way.
Oh, interesting. So take it to much of your action was in America, right? So you didn't see any combat at all?
I didn't. I saw a lot of combat after I did.
Did you
work in the
Did you know you had that experience, combat? Anything you can tell us about it? What you saw?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Go ahead.
Well, when I got to the discharge section, there was two, we called them 4F fellas, but we shouldn't have done that because
Can you state that for the record with the 4Fs?
The 4Fs?
Just for the record.
Well, they weren't able to go overseas because they were disabled in somehow or other. So anyway, I had a warrant officer, a tech sergeant, and a staff sergeant, and myself. We took care of sending the boys home after they came back from overseas. And there was bad times when I saw those boys coming home from overseas, but One of my favorite stories is this morning we had to have the fellas down at the railroad station in Jacksonville, Florida, to get them on the 11 o'clock train so that they could go home. And when I had to go and interview the fellas before they went, which was the day before. And this day I got the fellas all ready. They're all ready to go to the train, and I had about 10 or 15 more to go. And this, at the back of your discharge section, you have a little place for you have to use your right thumb for identification. Well, I got a hold of this fella. He was only 18 years old. And I said to him, I got to have your right hand. And he said, well, Sergeant, I can't give you my right hand. I said, what do you mean you can't give me your right hand? And I felt very sad after I saw what I did. But anyway, he says, I can't. And his hand was off like this. And you think I didn't feel bad at that. And he was only 18 years old. Then I had another fellow that had part of his leg off. These things were they thought, well, I'm in the States, I don't see what's going on. But when you see those boys coming home, it's hard. So that I did for, about 6 months. Then they put me in the payrolls. And the payrolls was a hard job because you had to make sure that all the things that fellas owed, like they had their laundry done, and they bought things at the PX or something, and they put them on their bill. So here I am, I'm going through these things, and it was a tough thing for me to figure these things out, but I got it after. And that's where I met the nicest fellow. Benito was his name, Louis Benito, and he was in charge of me and the payroll section. And that's where I learned a lot about payrolls. So I really had a good education.
Really? Let's see. Did you get any medals or anything? That sort of thing?
Yeah, I got
awards.
Did I get any awards?
Medals or awards or citations?
Well, I got all the ones that we got, all my ribbons that I got from being in the service, like the ribbon I had on the other day.
What'd you get it for? Just for being in the service? Or
it was
the one.
That was the one that showed the WWII ribbon.
You guys state for the record what WC is?
WC?
WAC.
W was Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. But now we went from 1943 to 1944, and we became regular Army. So I had two different...
Oh, you had the best of both worlds.
So
you were liking that.
No, I loved it.
During the war, how'd you keep in touch with your family? Like your sisters, your brothers?
Call my father, call my sisters. So wrote letters to my brother who was over in South Pacific.
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, Bill was, during his civilian life, he was a truck driver for Save All Bleach Company. So when you get your specifications, sometimes you get, well, you drive a truck. That's what you did in this lifetime. So they try to give you that. And all different things, like say you were a radio guy, they put you in the radio. But anyway, Bill, they gave him the drive, when he got in the South Pacific, they gave him the job of being the driver for the captain. Yeah,
The ambulance?
No. They gave him a driver driving the chaplain around.
Oh.
So he
Do you like that?
He liked it, but he wanted to get home. And when I wrote him a letter and told him that I was going to go overseas, he just said, don't you dare try to come over here because I will be very mad at you.
Brothers and family. Okay, a lot of people want to know, what was the food like?
Well, I got to tell you, the food that I had was, I never ate at the WWII detachment. Because I waited at the camp headquarters. I had my food down with the fellas from the headquarters. I ate with the boys.
How'd you get special treatment like that?
I told you I knew this captain.
Oh, that's good. Did same supplies or stress? You feeling stressed at all? I mean, if young people come back,
Well, it bothered me, but then after all, you have to figure, well, this is my job. I gotta. It was rough. It was but I loved it. I loved it. But it was tough seeing 18-year-old boys coming home and without any legs or arms or something.
Was there anything that brought you good luck? Or anything like some keepsake that you keep on you or hold on to make sure that your family or anything felt they get through the war okay?
Well, my best luck was having the Lord with me.
Big with everybody. Was that felt around the whole wartime, all the people you knew, or was it did it range from different people?
It was all during my lifetime.
I meant the war-wise. Was everybody had their own keepsakes, or was everybody mostly favorite God?
Well,
I know, like some people had like keep their cross on them, or just something.
Well, I had a cross. My dad sent me, and I don't know. I wasn't that much into being. All I wanted to do was do my job. That's it.
That's good. That's what we hope. That's what we wanted to keep us safe. How did everybody keep themselves busy? When they weren't in service or at the war,
Oh, we had service clubs. We had jobs. One of my jobs I had was being a cashier at one of the theaters at Camp Landing. And that was extra money, so that helped me a lot.
Extra money for what? Anything?
Just anything I wanted to spend it on. That was only $11 a week, but it was worth.
What could you get with $11 back during the war? I know the country was at war.
I got my toiletries, and I got my stockings, and whatever I needed.
Okay, was like any times like Bob Hope or like these entertainers, anybody like comedians, anybody come down to the.
Sammy Kaye and his orchestra came down one time, and Dennis Morgan came down one time, and Johnny Long came down. So we had entertainment.
That's great. What'd you do when you had your leave? Would you take a leave at all, or like when you?
Yeah. Well, I used to come home about every 4 months, and I'd come down and I'd go to the aircraft and see my dad because he worked there, and he'd take me around and show me off. He liked to show his daughter off in her uniform.
Proud daughter.
Yeah.
So he was very in favor of you going to the war. What about your mother?
My mother said no.
Why?
She didn't want me to go because at the time that I was thinking about going was that it was a different environment for the women. They had. She always thought that it was girls that didn't have a home or were just playing like prostitutes. Yes.
Was that the whole segment of the
That was a lot to do with when we first went in, that's why she didn't want me to go. She said, no, I don't want my daughter in with that kind of people.
So she felt women weren't right to be in war?
No.
But how did she feel like Wounded Riveter, like the women, trying to get women to do work in the steel mills to build the...
Oh, that was helping.
Was she in favor of that?
Oh,
Was she wanted to do
yeah,
that instead of
yeah.
going to the service?
I didn't do that.
Because you went out to save everybody. Any funny events or practical jokes you play in your fellow soldiers?
You got one there.
Anything
Well,
else?
I got another one. This when we were at when we first got down at Camp Landing, the captain came in and she sent orders out that we were going to have an inspection on Saturday morning, and that there would be no messing around and there wouldn't be any talking while the general of the camp was going to come in to see us. So anyway, he came around 7 o'clock that morning, and he's going through the troops, and he comes to me, and he looked, he kept looking me over and checking me, and he said to me, he said, what's that you got in your shirt? In your shirt pockets? And I said, oh, that's me, sir. Well, he turned around and he started laughing like that, but he laughed, and the captain laughed at me too. So, but it was a good. It made the life funny.
Okay, and just some little more general questions about. We'll begin. How'd you feel about Hitler and the Germans?
I didn't like Hitler. I didn't like the way he handled our boys. I didn't like the way he killed the Jews off. I didn't like any of that because it wasn't right for him to be doing that.
Now, how accurate were the reports back then? I know sometimes the government would hide some stuff, but would they give you pretty much accurate reports about what was going on? Because I know after the war, the being about the Holocaust after the war, were you keeping track of anything like that? I mean, not intelligent, but anything that was going on overseas, you would find out if it was true.
Well, I found out a lot from what I thought was the truth was when I talked to the boys when they came back from the service. But I got to tell you this one. I had the captain and I, we got along fine. And when anything went wrong at headquarters, at the WWII detachment, he would call me and ask me what was going on. So this day, I got back and he said to me, he says, did you hear what was happening? And I said, no, what? He says, well, he said, you got some German soldiers that are down at the camp hospital, and they're using them as trainees. And I said, what do you mean trainees? Well, they're being like interns. So anyway, he said to me, he said, did you know what was going on? And I said, no, what? He says, well, he says, one of your girls was found in bed with a German lieutenant. And you think I wasn't mad? I went up to him and I said, hey, Mick. That was what I called him, as Mick, because he was Irish. I said, we got to get rid of her. And he said to me, he says, what do you mean? I said, I don't want her in the camp with me. So the next day, well, that afternoon, she was on special orders to go to camp in Mississippi. I didn't want none of those things around me. But that would, and her brother, she had gotten a telegram that morning from her mother that her brother had been killed by a German. And boy, I was so mad. Get rid of her!
Okay, our next question. Pearl Harbor and the Japanese.
Pearl Harbor.
Japanese, I know, because that was what got a lot of everybody to join the service. But did you have any anguish towards Japanese before the war, or anything like that? You knew what they were doing before Harford came, and just...
I never knew that they were as rotten as they were, but anyway, we had a friend that was over at Pearl Harbor, and well, we had two friends that I knew of, and one was Ed Moran. You met Ed Moran. He was lived down there in Old Saybrook, and he was on his way to church, Pearl Harbor Sunday, and he didn't go to church. He had to go and dig graves where the fellas that had already gotten shot, and that was I felt so bad for them. It was terrible. But as far as Japanese people go, hey, they're just like you and I, but I mean, they didn't know any more than we knew about the war. They just got taken care of.
Did you believe about all the Japanese spies all across the country, and that they were all around Hawaii, and then they're all across the country looking for more places for them to attack, about all the concentration camps for the Japanese?
No, I got to tell you about this one. This kid went to the Naval Academy, and he was a very good friend of my sister's, and he was in Pearl Harbor that morning on the Arizona. And you know what happened to the Arizona. And Whitey never got home. I never saw him again. And Whitehead Conlin thing on Conlin Highway, well, that was named after him, Whitehead Highway. But, he had a very good friend that went to the Naval Academy that my sister was going with. But I mean, what got me a lot was when I found out that we had a Japanese camp down in Wethersfield Avenue.
Okay. Where?
On Wethersfield Avenue in Harford.
Harford. Wow, that close to home?
Yeah, well, what do they call them?
The concentration camps?
Yeah, they put them in those. They couldn't go to school or anything.
Did you think that was right?
Well, look what they did to our boys. That's how I feel about it. They hurt our boys something terrible. What they did to them in that march they had and couldn't eat or anything. They destroyed the boys. But that's well, now you got this stuff going on. Iran. And I don't believe in Iran.
Topic, but that's fine. Let's see here. Did you keep like a diary or anything like that?
Oh, I got a big album.
Yeah, a big album. Okay.
Of pictures.
Do we have the album?
Yeah. It's right in back of Joe.
Just look through there and show us any pictures you want to, any stories behind there, or any famous officers you have in there that you want to
You want to see?
show us.
You want to see your grandmother?
Let's see.
Your grandmother is way down here, number 6.
Number 6. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right here. Zoom in on that.
That was in Jacksonville, Florida.
Was this after you finished boot camp, or is this?
No, I was at boot camp.
This is during boot camp.
Yep.
This is the parade you love.
I love these parades. Every Saturday morning I went to parade.
Any other picture you want to show us?
Well, here are some pictures. Here it is. See this?
What's that?
Hard to get.
Zoom in on that.
Can you get it, Joe?
We'll go ahead and read it here. It says, Camp Landing. A GI here offered a whack fire packages of gum in exchange for a date, explaining that the commodity was hard to get. Responded the whack, so am I. See that? It is proven. The lie, she says, it is proven. It's very good.
See, these are training pictures that we had. See this?
And then these are old soldiers you knew? Oh, this was pictures of your boot camp?
Yeah.
It's very nice. Have you your famous captain friend? Any pictures of your captain friend?
Oh, yeah.
So let the world know what he looks like. And then okay for special
See me playing baseball after I had a shot?
A shot? Alcohol shot?
No.
Oh, just a shot.
See this? My swampy camp.
Swampy camp. And they made you guys, build your own tents? Your own...
Oh, no,
they were just under
our
construction.
barracks were already made for us.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing from this. That was in the East Hartford paper.
This is when you were at Texas? This is me, your camp in Texas. Just tells her she graduated from Texas, and then pictures of her in her uniform. You look very nice in your uniform. Did you like your uniform?
Oh, yeah. I liked it so much I had one made. Here's my buddies.
There's your buddies.
There's my
Try and
buddies.
force the camp. So.
Here's where I fell out of a truck and cut my head open.
Oh, how'd you do that?
I was coming home from the theater, and...
Was this on leave, or were you just...
No, I was coming home. I was to work. And on the way home to the camp, this fella swerved the thing, and I was sitting in the front seat with him, and the door of the car and the door of the truck came out open, and I went flying right down on my head. And I got stitches. Now, there's one of the fellas that worked with me. There's my other one. This is my camp officer. There's my first camp captain.
It's your first captain?
Yeah, she was, her name was Lieutenant Ranch, and she lived in, down in Glenbrook, Connecticut. So I take more Connecticut.
Connecticut, yes.
So here's a dance across, and I went to...
Oh, they must have, did they have a lot of mingling with men? Was there any, were you guys segregated? Or was there males in your boot camp, or was it female-male boot camp?
Like the major told me one day, he says, Red, because I had the red hair, he said to me, he says, there's 250 men on this post, and I bet you know 225. That's because I worked at the theater.
Who's this right here?
That's one of the girls I hung around with. She's from Texas. And here's my boys from the headquarters. Here.
These are all your boys.
They all took me to dinner. We went to the NCO clubs together all the time. Had dances and everything. I wish I could find it. Here. That's not me.
That's not you.
This girl's from Pennsylvania, I think.
You knew a lot of people.
Here's my...
Who's this gentleman right here? Let's see, he stands out.
That was a kid from Wethersfield. I used to go with him before I went in the service.
Oh, did he join the Army too? Or?
He,
Did you hear anything about him during the war?
He worked with my father in the aircraft before he went into service. And this is a fella I used to go out with a lot. He came from Detroit.
Oh. Motorcycle.
But this fella, I found out he was married, so I said goodbye. Here's my brother Bill's wedding, my brother Bob's wedding. This girl, she married a fellow. Her name was Eileen Schiavone. She married a fellow that became a radio announcer. These are a lot of things, boy.
Lots of memories behind these photos.
Yes.
And they seem like yesterday to you?
Yeah, I think about them every so often.
You just look at them and just have vivid memories about it?
These are my happy memories.
Boy. That's okay, we don't need to see that. We'll just keep
See this girl here?
That's a gentleman, right?
Is it? You sure it's a girl? Oh, it isn't. Oh, so
Any more pictures of you in your uniform?
yeah, I got some.
Show the world what Gladys Donovan looks like in her uniform.
Yeah.
Is that you right there?
Yeah.
Can we zoom in on there? Who's, can you name the people in the picture with you?
No. I can't remember their names now. Where the heck are the rest of them?
That's not World War II
These
stuff.
are your family.
No more of that stuff. We're just focusing on the World War II photos. So yeah, that's enough of our photos there. And just a few more.
Oh, here.
Here we go. This is the pictures we're looking at. It's a nice one. This is you? Is that you right there?
No, that's Lorraine Day's secretary. Lorraine Day used to come over. She came to Camp Landing one day, and we had lunch with her.
Yeah.
Yep. See her? But this is her secretary here.
And now you're very nice. We're here for our next photos.
See, this is how I got to go to all the big things. I got along good with my guys. And this is that girl that you saw,
Mm-hmm.
that's her. She married this tech sergeant. And I'll show you.
Oh,
This,
you got the
this
name?
is the one everybody used to say, look at him! that was a camp. And
That's all the famous pictures. Okay. So now we're getting towards the end of your service. Do you remember what your fond memories about V-Day and final VE Day? So we'll go with victory over in Germany and then we'll go with
Well,
victory.
V-Day. Which was first, right?
V-Day.
V-Day?
The Normandy beaches.
V-Day. I was on my way to come home. I was on a furlough. And I got stuck in the train in Washington, D.C. because they were holding the tracks. They couldn't get anybody on. Everybody wanted to get on the trains and come home. But VE Day, where was I?
Victory Europe.
I was in camp.
Back in camp?
And I went to work in the theater, yeah. Then after that, we went to the NCO club and we had a party. I had a lot of parties.
Okay. How about victory over Japan and then the atomic bomb droppings?
When was that?
These were in 1946.
I was home.
So this toward you were out of the service after he dropped the bombs?
No. I came home in February of 46. So you can take it from there.
So your service ended in February 46?
Yeah.
Okay. You went straight home, or did you go somewhere else? Or?
I came right home. Then I used to go with my father. I met him every Friday. We used to go to Honus's Oyster House in Hartford and would have dinner. So this day he says to me, he says, "Hey, Gladys," he said, let's go and have dinner. And then I want to get a new suit. So I said, okay. So we go. We get through with our dinner, and we're walking down Pearl Street, and Bond Clothes used to be down there. And he said, well, wait a minute. He said, come on. He said, we got to go down here for a few minutes. So I said, okay. So he said, we walked by the VA. It was at 95 Pearl Street. And he said to me, he says, you want, come on in here for a minute. And he says, I've got to see a man. So he said, I said, okay. He said, well, there's Colonel Shirosky and Sawalski I've got to see. So I said, all right. So I walked in with him, and he says, no, you sit here for a minute. I'm going in and see him. So he come out in about 10 minutes, and he says to me, Laddie, he says, come on in here with me. This man wants to see you. So I said, all right. So I went in, and he asked me all about, what I did in the service and everything. And I told him. And so he says, how would you like to work here? And I says, oh, I'd love to work here. He says, well, he said, I got a couple of papers here I want you to fill out and then send them to me in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks I had a job at the VA.
All right. So you didn't take up the GI Bill and go to college, school at all? You just went straight to working?
No, I left the
Didn't
GI
want to,
Bill.
or?
I left the GI Bill for somebody else. I met your grandfather.
Did you had close freshmen? Any close friends? Do you still keep in contact with any friends? You were close friends during the service?
No. Nobody. No, I'm dying.
Did you join a veterans organization?
I sure did.
Tell us about it.
Well, after I met your grandfather, well, he belonged to the police department, of course. And anyway, he was very active with the VFW. So he asked me if I wanted to join. And at that time I wouldn't join because we had 3 daughters that I wanted to take care of, and I didn't want to leave them. So I said, well, I will when I'm ready. So I said, okay. So anyway, I joined the VFW Auxiliary, and I was a captain. I was the president about 13 times. And then we moved to Old Saybrook, and I got in with the Legion, the American Legion, and I became president. The first and only one lady, first lady in
in your post?
In my post.
That's a very good accomplishment. Okay. After being in service, did it change your outlook on war or anything to do with the military?
Sure did. I told you. I said, I don't like the idea of the our boys going over to Europe and fighting that darn old Iran, and I mean it with all my heart.
In the American Legion activities, what did you do in your post and stuff like that?
Well, I went from secretary to commander.
What does that entail? Like, what kind of activities do you do? To like set up like functions or?
Oh, I did all kinds of things. we had meetings, and I was a secretary for the meetings. And then they needed a commander, so they asked me if I would learn. And I said, sure, I'd do it. So I became their first lady commander.
I bet you were loving that.
Oh, yeah. I had a great installation. They brought a drum corps and everything else for my installation. That was a great thing.
Okay. Let's see. This is a good question here. You still attend the reunions, correct? No, for like all the services,
No,
you know.
I can't get. There's no more wax that were with me.
No more. You're the last one.
I'm one of the last ones. Yeah, 85 years old. I guess I'm only. Yeah.
Okay. A big question. How being in the service changed and experienced your life? Good or positive?
It was very positive for me. Very positive. Because when I went in the service, and I mean it sincerely, I'll tell everybody, I didn't know where babies came from. And it was very hard when I used to have to go to those meetings we had every Friday afternoon and learn about sex and everything else. But I found out fast.
Bet you did. So you met your husband after the war? After
Yes.
the war?
Yep. In a basketball suit.
So the war was good for him? Do you know, did
Well,
he tell you much about his experience?
He did a lot of traveling in the service. He really did. He was in the Coast Guard. And he went up to Maine, and he went in the ice place, and he went to Long Island, and then he went all over the world. And he brought the Fellas Hope on the troop ships. Troop ships.
We're pretty much coming to the end. Anything you want to add? That we didn't go over that you want to this is future generations of America can watch this. Anything you want to let them know about your experiences in the war, or to dissuade them or persuade them to join the armed service?
Well, I would tell you, it is a very wild education. It really is. It's everything you make it. That's all I can say. Because if you're going to go in the service with the mind that, oh, I have to do it, I don't want to do it, and I'll get killed, and it was a tough thing to think about. And I'll tell you, when I saw those boys coming over, but my worst story that I can say is I was in Jacksonville, Florida, in the train, waiting to come home on furlough. And I met the sergeant that was taking care of the boys, and I said, Sergeant Finley, I said, what are those nuns doing and those nurses doing over there? And I said, are they our nurses? And he says, yeah. And I said, geez. He says, but these poor girls were they were guarded by about 8 soldiers, you know. So I said, what's going on? And he said, well, those girls just came back from the South Pacific. And one had 2 of her legs gone. The other one had her arms gone. Another one had her eyes gone. Another one had her ear gone. And I said, did that happen to her? And he said, yeah. He says, that's why they're going to take them to an army hospital. I said, oh. I said, thank God my brother was right.
That seems like a good story to end on.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you very much, Gladys, for giving us the time and let us know about your experiences in the war, and hope to hear from you again.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. That was a nice luncheon we had. And that Captain Tutton, what's the name? Your Professor Tully?